Hello and welcome to this premiere episode of Tuesday's Tips and Tales. I'm going to be sharing tips and tales from the beautiful region of Grasse. Not grass that you mow, but Grasse. It's not far from Cannes, about a 20-minute drive. The Cannes Film Festival actually finished the day before I arrived. And this year I went for a raw material exhibition called Simpar, Simpar, which is an annual event for raw material suppliers, normally in Paris. This year, for the first time, it was hosted in Grasse, and it had around more than 100 raw material suppliers. What is raw materials? They're ingredients that go into your fragrances, whether they be naturals or isolates or aroma chemicals. And I went there for that, but also for the Rose de Mai festival, which is celebrated every year. Rose de Mai meaning May rose. And it's a beautiful festival that I've always missed. And this year I was determined to catch it. So if you are interested in raw material exhibitions, or if you're interested in just visiting Grasse or going for the Rose de Mai festival, I have some tips of what to do, what not to do, places to visit, and learn from my mistakes. It's full of exciting adventures. I'm going to keep it short and sweet, and things that I never would have believed happened, circumstances I completely didn't expect. And it's a place where, I learned to adapt and accept challenges and go out of my tiny little mind often. So stay tuned if you want to learn about the city of Grasse and listen to my tales and some tips for you if you're going there for a few days or a few hours. So let's first start with a friend that I met when I studied at the Grasse Institute of Perfumery for the summer in 2016. A friend of mine I call him Vincent because I'm from the north of England, but he's French, so you call him Vincent. He's got a PhD in organic chemistry. He's a self-taught perfumer. He makes incredible fragrances, and he is just an incredible, passionate perfumer and an incredible human being and full of adventure. And he doesn't mind slumming it in hostels whilst I'm looking, for the best apartment with a grand terrace and breathtaking views. But, we always meet up at exhibitions and trade fairs and things like that. I met him in Milan in March. And this time we decided to go to Grasse for the Rose de Mai festival and for this Simpar exhibition, so that we could meet raw material suppliers, get a load of freebies. That's what these exhibitions is all about, isn't it? For the free bags and the samples. I'm going to give you tips on if you want to go to Grasse, but I'm going to give you tips about if you're going to go to any of these raw material exhibitions as well. So first of all, I arrived at the apartment and my husband drove. He came with me for the first 2 days, and then I dropped him off at the airport to go back to work on the Tuesday. But the first day we arrived quite early. It was a 7-hour trip. It took him only 6 hours and 30 minutes. And we arrived at this beautiful apartment, found it on Airbnb. It's like a 10, 11-minute walk. For me, the slowest walker in the world. It takes me 11 minutes to get to the tourist office, which really is where you want to be and should be your first port of call. Really helpful people in there. Full of brochures and amazing lampshades, which I took lots of random pictures of. Anyway, and it had beautiful views. I do love a terrace, especially when I'm going away for a few days and the weather is going to be gorgeous. I love to wake up to a gorgeous view. I love to look at a gorgeous view before I go to sleep. And I love a terrace where I can sit out and just chill out and have a glass of wine. So if you want to know about this Airbnb, then you can get in touch. And I will let you know where I stayed. Beautiful place, really accommodating, 2 bedrooms and a short walk into town. So we got there on the Sunday and we were really tired. We'd set off at 6 o'clock in the morning and just chilled out. We had like cheese and meats that we'd taken with us and we just sat on the balcony. They had Netflix, so we ended up watching Netflix and drinking wine, and it was lovely. Then the next day we ended up going into Cannes. Cannes, beautiful place. We drove there. I wouldn't recommend driving into Cannes, actually. The traffic was an absolute nightmare. You probably could have walked there faster. And parking, they do have parking actually quite near the marina. So they've got underground car parks, so they're secure. So the parking is good. It's just getting into Cannes that is a bit of a nightmare. So if you can and you're staying in Grasse, if you can and can, if you can and can. If you're staying in Grasse, I would recommend going on the bus or there's a train. But if you want to drive and you have a car, then by all means do it, but don't do it like in rush hour traffic, and don't do it just before lunchtime. Oh my goodness. So it's fabulous. The film festival had finished the day before, went to a gorgeous restaurant. It was very windy and blustery and sunny, and it was a gorgeous place. So definitely, if you go to Grasse, you have to go to Cannes for a day. And they've got fantastic restaurants there. They've got the location of the Cannes Film Festival. They've got the red carpet up there. I think it's there all the time, the red carpet going up the steps, and you have to queue. Not officially, it's just an unofficial queue where people want to stand on the red carpet on the steps outside the venue where they host the Cannes Film Festival. But then they've got like the Hollywood Walk of Fame where they put their handprints. Well, they've got the same there in Cannes. I saw Angelina Jolie was there, and I can't remember who else. And then the next day was the first day of the exhibition, which was on a Tuesday. And I took my husband to the airport in Nice quite early. The traffic going in and out of Grasse is basically like one road that goes in and out of Grasse. So what you must do is avoid the morning traffic where a lot of schools, kids are around. People are dropping off their kids. People are going to work. A lot of people live in Grasse and work in Nice, and vice versa. They might work outside. They might work in Grasse and, like live outside of Grasse. It's quite expensive to live there, I think. So yeah, avoid the morning rush hour traffic. It's a bit of a nightmare. And it's like clogged up on this one roundabout that takes you into Grasse. But it's a fabulous place. I recommend. They've got really good public transport. They've got Ubers. They've got taxis. They've got the Palais de Congrès, which is actually next door to the tourist office, where you can find taxis of an evening. So because my Airbnb was a short walk into town, and I like to have lunchtime cocktails when I'm in France and I'm going to an expo, so I decided to leave the car where it was in the apartment and go, not actually in the apartment, obviously that would be a really big apartment and stink of diesel, but I left it in the car park outside the apartment, walked into town, took me about 11 minutes, and it was right opposite the tourist office. Now, when we were going into Grasse, my husband said, "Oh, look at all those marquees and tents and things like that. Maybe that's where the exhibition is going to be." And I'm like, "Don't be so ridiculous. Of course it's not going to be in tents. There are like people that pay tens of thousands of euros for a stand to come to one of these events. They're not going to be in a tent." Well, it was. They were in tents. It was outside. And it made it even nicer, actually, because the weather was just absolutely stunning. The weather in Grasse in May is amazing. It can rain. It can get cloudy. It can be a bit chilly. So pack a mixture of things and look at the weather forecast. And the weather is very interchangeable. So we went to the exhibition. That was a really amazing time. And it was on for 2 days. So here's my tips. First of all, around lunchtime, you get freebies, right? So when you get in, you have to print your badge. So when you go online, now the ticket for this was actually 40 euros. No, a lot of exhibitions actually don't charge you, but this one does. So it was 40 euros. You can get it online at their website. If you just Google Simpar, Simppar, you can apply. I'm not sure where it's going to be next year. It might be in Grasse again. I'm not sure. There is very tight security, obviously, but there's 2 lines. And there was one line. I'm like, oh my God, how long is that queue to get in? What? I didn't have any ink in my printer, so I asked Vincent to print out my badge for me, which is basically an A4 piece of paper. And then when you go in, they give you a lanyard with plastic so you fold it up, and then you've got your little badge and you put it inside there. So that's really good. There's a queue for people that don't have badges, and there's no queue for people that already have printed out their badge. That's my first tip. Print out your pass before you go and have it ready. And then when you go in, you simply show your pass. They give you a free bag. You get a free magazine and a free guide of all the exhibitors. And then you get this lanyard, which you can use. And they give you scent strips as well, which is really nice because, you know, a lot of people, you're able to smell a lot of raw materials. Obviously, that's what the whole expo is all about. So these scent strips come in really handy. And I kept going in and out so I could keep getting more scent strips. I ended up with about 5 packets of them. I love freebies and I'm obsessed with scent strips. I don't know why. They had a lot of exhibitors there and I started on the outside and then just worked my way around. And what I tend to do when I go to these expos is just like walk around quite quickly, see which ones and make notes of the ones that I want to come back to. And if you look in the little magazine that they give you, you've got a list of all the exhibitors and you can tick off the ones that you want to go back to. For instance, I'm always interested in rose oil, rose jasmine, helichrysum, and really unusual ingredients. Like we came across one ingredient, artichoke, absolute, that we'd never heard of before, as being used in fragrances. So Vincent got it. Actually, I got the sample for Vincent because he was too shy to ask, and they actually didn't want to give a sample at the end of the day. But I used my charm and they gave it to me, which in turn I gave to Vincent. And I challenged him. I said, use that artichoke extract in a fragrance. I dare you. So he's going to make a fragrance with it. Can't wait to see what he comes up with. Always go on the first day and go in the morning because people are in a great mood and they are like really excited, but don't go expecting tons and tons of freebies. You're not going to get them. And if you want to buy anything, wait until the last day, at the end of the day. So on the second day, they closed around 4:30. So I got there about 4:15, and the people that I wanted to buy things off, particularly a Bulgarian rose farm that's family run. They were beautiful, really accommodating, and they let me buy some samples of rose essential oil, rose absolute. I got some rose hydrosol. I also got some lavender absolute as well. So I've got some amazing samples. I'm going to be sharing those on my YouTube channel. And yeah, so if you want to get samples or you want to buy, they won't give stuff away. You can imagine there's thousands of people going to these exhibitions. They have nothing left by the first 2 hours of the expo if they kept giving stuff away. So often you will find people, they'll have bags and pens and, you know, little tokens and things. And some of them will give samples of things. They got it ready, but have it there because they'll probably have run out on the first day. So always get there first day in the morning, get there early. So that's my tip for the first day of an expo. And if you want to buy any samples, get there at the end of the day on the last day, but tell them I'm going to come back, give them your business card, go armed with business cards. Not everybody does business cards anymore. In fact, a lot of them, because they said that they wanted to save paper, but I still like a business card. And they had where you had to scan the QR code and add it to your phone. And I don't like that because I don't mind business cards because I actually keep them. I collect them and they're memorabilia to me and they're tangible. But yeah, a lot of people are not doing that these days. I don't like the new. I like the antiquated way. I like the old-fashioned business cards. And I think you remember people more that way as well because a lot of people have taken, like I have, to putting their picture on their business card, which helps you to remember that brand or that person even more. My one tip is that you can find lots of magazines and brochures, etc. For instance, Nez, N-E-Z, always have their free magazine. It's called Niche by Nez, and they always give it for free. And they have plenty of them. So you'll end up, it's a annual magazine that's free, basically. And they always have it at these exhibitions. So but you'll be getting, like, if you're getting samples and you're getting brochures and things like that, you need to take with you a big bag. If you can take a bag on wheels that'll save your shoulder or your arms from carrying things, you might end up with a lot of stuff. So that's my other tip. But what did I do? Well, I'm a woman who's very curious. And I just love wandering around on my own. I met Vincent there, but we always split up. It's the best thing to do. Go. If you're going on your own, it's perfectly fine to go on your own. Everybody's really lovely, wonderful, really friendly. Don't bother about, having to learn French to go to these things because a lot of these people were from India. They were from the Middle East. They were from France, Bulgaria. One guy was Mexican but lived in Japan. So yeah, it's just, you meet an eclectic range of people when you go to these exhibitions. So be prepared to be amazed. Be prepared to be excited about all of the raw materials that they have, and go armed with questions and take business cards and be nosy and compliment them on their products. You know, they love that. And it's just a really amazing time. But I'm so curious. I found this little corner and I could see all these people gathering, and it said VIP. And I thought, ooh, I know I'm not on the VIP list, definitely not. But what I do want to do is find out what this is. And there was a very young girl, she was on the desk. And I asked her, what's this about? And she said, oh, it's about lavender, blah, blah, blah. I didn't really quite understand what she was saying. So I just said, oui, bien sûr. Yes, of course. So she shrugged her shoulders and just went, pff, like this, and just went, okay, go in. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like, I've just blagged my way into a VIP area. And there was a mayor of Grasse giving a speech. I recorded it. I had no idea what he was saying because, you know, I'm not quite fluent in French, and French people do speak really fast. So I didn't understand. But then I asked somebody who was from the press, and she said it's an award for lavender farmers. And then they presented this award to this lovely old man who apparently is the oldest lavender farmer in Europe or in the world. Now, whether he's like the oldest man that's like farming like lavender, or whether his farm is the oldest farm, you know, in the world that harvests and grows and harvests and distills lavender oil, I don't know. I never quite got that far. But what I did find out is when they finished with the speech, in the corner there was champagne and rosé, and I'm a fan of both. And they had little canapes as well, one of which I dropped on the floor. And because I've got a bad back, I didn't want to bend down to pick it up, because I thought the last thing I want to do, a first day, like proper day in Grasse, is like hurt my back. So I just left it on the floor. I look really rude, but I promise I'm not. Anyway, I got my 2 glasses of champagne. I got a few canapes. I sat down at the table, and then my friend Vincent called me, and I'm like, where are you? I said, he asked me where I was. I said, I'm in the VIP tent. He's like, oh my God, how did you get in there? I said, come. So he tried to get in and she wouldn't let him in. I said, oh, let me come. So I went to the entrance of the VIP tent, and I said, oh, it's my friend, mon ami, Vincent. And she just looked really exasperated and just went, whatever, go in. So she let him in. So we sat in the corner drinking champagne and rosé and having little canapes. And then we met his friend called Didier, who is a very memorable, fun Frenchman who basically deals in Chinese oud. And when I talked to my friend Mahmoud, who's from the Comoros Islands, who knows all about oud, he said, Chinese oud, I've never heard of it. No, there's no such thing. I said, well, here, he gave me a sample of it. And when I told him where I lived, he got really excited because he knows the region where I live, and he's threatened to come and visit me. Anyway, super fun guy. Vincent knows him really well. And he gave me a piece of Chinese argo wood, the actual wood, not the oil. So that was really exciting. And then Vincent said to me, look, Melanie, who's that over there? And I went, I don't know. Who is it? He said, Melanie. He's like a rock star in perfumery. He's the master perfumer for Louis Vuitton. Like, oh my God, I need to go and get a selfie with him. Vincent had a look of horror on his face. He's like, I don't think he'll let you have a selfie with him. I'm like, well, do you know what? If you don't ask, you don't get. So with my 2 glasses of champagne courage, I just got up and I just thought, do you know what? Screw it. Let's do it, as Richard Branson says. And I thought, I'm never going to get this opportunity again. So I just walked up to him and I asked him in French, very nicely, very politely, with a big smile on my face. I said, excuse me, would you mind if I had a selfie with you? And he looked quite thrilled, actually. So I got my little camera out and took a couple of selfies of us. And you can see that on my Facebook page with the chief perfumer, the master perfumer of Louis Vuitton, and me in a selfie. Only me. And just in case you're wondering, his name is Jacques Cavalier Belletrude. I think I'll just call him Jack. Because we're like besties now. And I think I might contact him on LinkedIn and see if I can interview him. That would be quite a scoop, wouldn't it? But yeah, my friend was like, Melanie, that really took some balls to do that. I'm like, do you know what? Didn't even knew who he was before, so doesn't matter. It's like going up to a complete stranger, going, can I have a selfie? At least he was obliging. Very lovely man, lovely man. But I'm only saying that because he said yes. Anyway, that was a really amazing day. And then I ended up meeting Mahmoud, who I interviewed in my book, Fragrance is My Favorite F Word. He is the CEO and distiller of Ylang Ylang in the Comoros Islands. I interviewed him for my book and he was there. I got really excited when I saw him. He's an amazing, really generous guy and really passionate about Ylang Ylang. And in Comoros Islands, people associate Ylang Ylang with they really associate it mostly with Madagascar, but the Comoros Islands actually produce the super extra Ylang Ylang, which put my teeth back in, Madagascar, I need to watch that cartoon. Madagascar don't produce the super extra Ylang Ylang. It's super fine, it's beautiful, it's a very excellent quality Ylang Ylang. It's the highest grade, normally reserved for the likes of Chanel and Galan perfumes. So if you can get your hands on it, do. I've got some and I'm going to start selling it. Actually, I'm giving it away, a little sample of it with my solid perfumes. So if you want to buy my solid perfumes, they're going to be going on sale in the early autumn. Anyway, never mind about that. After we did the first day of the expo, we went to a perfumers party, which was upstairs in the Palais de Congrès. Oh, by the way, here's another tip. There's a cloakroom where you can leave your stuff. So it was in the Palais de Congrès, which was Palais de Congrès or Congress of, I don't know actually. Anyway, it's upstairs. There's a cloakroom. You can leave your bags and your coats, but you have to get it like by 4:30 that day, or you have to wait until the next day. But if you forget it on the last day, I don't actually know what happens. I managed to get mine just in time, in the nick of time. But yeah, you can leave your stuff if you end up burdened. And they do a lunch there as well, which I thought was free. But it's not, and it's really expensive. And the service was shocking. I had to wait like 30 minutes just to get a bottle of water that I had to pay €4 for. So I ended up saying, screw that. If I got to wait like 30 minutes for a bottle of water, I'm not going to get anything to eat. And it's really expensive and the food looked a bit rubbish. So I didn't bother with the lunch, but I put my stuff in the cloakroom. And they had a perfumers in the same place upstairs on the rooftop terrace, inside and outside. Perfumers party, and it's free to people that have got the badge, that have gone to the exhibition. There's a cocktail party in the evening, and this one on the first day started at 7:30. So it was such fun. Met some more like-minded people. Met a guy called Robin, who I ended up going for a picnic in the park with, actually. And I also met a makeup artist who was telling me all about his exploits, about all the celebrities that he's done the makeup for, and giving me some interesting tidbits. It's amazing when you go to places like this. You feel a little bit out of sorts, but once everybody's had a few drinks, anybody will talk to anyone, basically. So I would say I felt a bit out of sorts, and I was like, oh God, I can't believe I've walked in my high heels all the way for this. It's like really boring and nobody's talking to me, and I feel really alone because Vincent had disappeared. I don't know where he'd gone. He's such a social butterfly. And but yeah, I met this guy who's a makeup artist, but also happens to be on the board of directors for the Art of Olfaction. So he is an incredible guy, lots of fun to be with, and we're staying in touch. So that's really amazing. So I've made some new friends while I was there, and the party was great. You get free flowing apéro spritz, cocktails, champagne, or rosé. Or they've got soft drinks, of course, as well, and loads of canopies, loads of food and music, and it's just beautiful, and incredible views of Grasse in the dark. Again, pictures you can see on my Facebook page. On the second day, they had an inside section that I hadn't ventured into the day before, so I ended up going in there, and I thought, I want to do that, and I want to do some touristy things, in the afternoon. So I ended up meeting a cooperative. It's a lavender cooperative. They have 200 lavender farmers in this cooperative that they help to support in the region of Provence. And I got really excited, and I was smelling the lavender, and they were telling me all about what they do. And I was talking to this guy, and I said, I'm so excited. I'm going to Sault on Friday. Sault, Sault, is a region that you have to go to if you want to see the best lavender fields in the world. Lavender or lavandin fields. And he looked at me and he said, why are you going on Friday? And I said, what do you mean I'm going to see the lavender? He said, there is none. I said, what do you mean there is no lavender? There's fields everywhere. He said, yeah, but it's not bloomed yet. You're about 2 weeks too early. He said, it's just going to look like this. And he just showed me the ends of the stalks that were like just green. He said, that's all you're going to see. He said, that would be like such a waste of time for you. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. So anyway, I was like, what am I going to do? You know, so I saw my Airbnb host and I said, listen, I might end up staying and not going to Salt. But then I thought, well, what else can I do in Grasse? Because, you know, I've seen a lot of the places before. There's things that I want to go to. I can do those quite quickly. I really wanted to go to Salt. I'd already booked my accommodation and everything and paid for it. And it was too late to cancel. But then fate intervened. Because in the window of the public toilets that they've got near the tourist office, next to the Palais de Congrès, is a poster that basically has an exhibition of perfume bottle dealers that deal in antique and vintage perfumes, and they sell them. And I went there last year in June, and they always have it. And I didn't realise, and I didn't even think to look about it, because I thought, well, I'm going to Grasse and then I'm going to Salt and that's it. I'm like, that is fate. That is my guardian angel telling me I have to stay in Grasse because there's no lavender in Provence and they've got this exhibition that's on Sunday. So I ended up staying. Thank goodness the room was available. And so the day after, they had an actually closing gala then for the expo, which was really nice. And they weren't serving alcohol when we got there. It started at 5:30. Apparently the mayor was coming at 6:30 to make a speech, and we were looking for the champagne, and all they had was water and juice. And I was horrified, and so was Vincent. And he said, I said, where's the champagne? He said, they're not serving it until after the mayor's speech. I'm like, what? Because are they worried that we're all going to like heckle him or something? Anyway, they said, but that's if he turns up, because, you know, he's often quite late. So anyway, I must have manifested it. They started serving the champagne after about 10 minutes, and the beautiful canapes and everything. And again, really nice. You know, you get to meet different people. There was a lady standing on her own. And, you know, we went over to talk to her, and it turns out that she, like me, is a perfume bottle collector. And I told her that I was thinking of selling my collection. And then she just looked at me and said, then you're not a real collector. I said, okay, then, well, maybe I'm not. No, but I'm a businesswoman at the end of the day. And selling some bottles means I have more money to buy new ones. See, up there for thinking, isn't it? So that was the second day of Grasse, and then I decided to go for a picnic in the park the next day. And I wanted to go to one that's quite famous. It's the gardens of the Museum of International Perfumery, which is one place that you have to go to when you go to Grasse. And the gardens look absolutely incredible, breathtaking. It's about a 40-minute drive. Luckily, I had a car. Also, I thought. I invited Robin to go to the picnic with me, and I decided, do you know what? There's actually another park, and somebody told me about it. And it's in Grasse. It's right at the top. So it's hard to walk, but you can walk, but it's all uphill. So I would recommend just getting a taxi. It might cost you about 20 euros to get a taxi up there, but it's well worth it. Beautiful views. It's free. They've got benches, and you just get the most magnificent views, and it's quite small. They've got a little park there for kids, and lots of people go there just to sit on a bench, have a picnic, and look at the beautiful views of Grasse. Again, pictures will be on my Facebook page. It's a park dedicated to Princess Pauline, who was the wife of Napoleon. And my plan was to pick up my new friend, Robin, at his Airbnb. Vincent had now left. He was going back to the UK. And so we were going to picnic in the park. And my plan was to pick him up in my car. When I put my car on, I got a warning sign. Now, bear in mind, I bought this car like at the end of January. And it's now like May. And it said, engine fault, get it fixed immediately. I'm like, no, you've got to be kidding me. Now in March, the clutch went. I was halfway to a 2-hour trip to pick up my husband from the airport, and the clutch just went on the car about 6 weeks after I bought it. I am not kidding. I was furious. And now this, like 2 months after that incident. So I'm like, what kind of a car have they sold me? So I'm really angry. Anyway, I have to get the tow people to tow it away because I can't drive it. There's a problem with it. So I thought, this is typical, isn't it? Anyway, enough about my car drama. The picnic was amazing. You must go to Princess Pauline Park. It's just at the top of Grasse. If you're a good walker and you like hiking, you can walk there. I wouldn't recommend it in the hot months though, like August and September. The afternoon was spent trying to deal with my car and realising that nothing was going to get done. And luckily, my Airbnb host, who was an absolute superstar, said you can stay an extra day until Monday and you can stay for free, because I'd already paid for an extra 2 days anyway because I wasn't going to Salt. But I forgot to tell you this tale. When I arrived at the apartment, I told her we've come for the exhibition, but I've also come for the Rose de Mai festival. And she just looked at me really puzzled and said, well, you'll be very disappointed because that was 2 weeks ago. You've missed it. I'm like, what? So I've come all this way for lavender that doesn't exist at the moment because it's not flowering. And I've come for a Rose de Mai festival that was 2 weeks before I arrived. Like, what else can go wrong? Oh, yeah, my car broke down. I ended up spending the evening walking into Grasse and just taking random pictures. I wanted to go on the yellow train, which is every hour from either 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, depending on which day. They don't operate on a Sunday, but they operate every other day. And it's the yellow train. It's really worth it, but I missed it 3 times. So I never got to go on the yellow train. I even tried to go on my last day and I missed it. I tried to go at 4 o'clock the night before I left. I tried to go at 5 o'clock, but then by the time I looked at my watch, it was 5:05. That was the last one. And then I tried to go the next day at 11 o'clock and I was just like, oh, screw it. I can't be bothered. I just want to go home. I spent Saturday morning in a taxi on the way to a private airport in Cannes to get my hire car. Now, I've got amazing insurance with my bank, Credit Agricole. It's called Pacifica Pacifica Assistance. Anyway, then you can get English speakers, but only from Monday to Friday. I called them on a Saturday and I said I want to speak to an English speaker or a translator. They said the translators don't work on a Saturday and there are no English speakers on a Saturday. I'm like, well, okay, so I better not have an accident or break down at the weekend. Come on. I was so frustrated. But apart from that, they're actually really good. So they pay for a taxi for me to go to Cannes Airport to Europcar to get a car. When I got out of this minibus taxi, the bellhop came, you know, with those gold like luggage carousel type things, trolleys that you have in like 5-star hotels when the bellboy comes out and takes your luggage to your room. He came outside. Now it's only for private jets. So he came up to me with this trolley and said, hello, madame, do you have a plane waiting for you? I'm like, I wish. Yeah, that's mine over there, that little private jet. I'm off to Mauritius. No, not really. I'm just here to pick up a car from Europcar. So I did, and it was cute. It's a Fiat 500 Sport. It's got 6 gears. I was so excited. Much better than the car that I've got. And I wish that I hadn't bought the car that I've got now. And I would have bought a Fiat 500. Or so I thought, until the day I was driving home. So now I'm mobile again with a functioning car. I decided to go to some of the places that are just outside the centre that you can't really walk to. It's probably 2-3 kilometres, maybe 2 kilometres. I'm not a very good walker. And especially because it's downhill, which means you have to come back uphill. And I'm not good at hills either. I used to suffer from asthma. It's not because I'm lazy. And they've got Gallinard, which is a perfume house, one of the oldest perfume houses in Grasse. You have Gallinard, you have Fragonard, and you have Molinard. Do you say it with a D on the end? Not really. Fragonard, Gallinard, or Molinard? Or Gallinard, Molinard, and Fragonard to you and me. Anyway, these places, you have to go and visit them. Fragonard, you will find it next to the Museum of Perfumery. Now, they've got another Fragonard, which is outside, and it's got a great big shop, and they have a garden as well, which I didn't get to because I just had too much to do on this particular day, on the Saturday afternoon. So the first stop that I went to was Gallinard, and I actually went in through the wrong entrance. I ended up where like all the delivery vans and everything parked. But it meant that, I got a good parking space. So I walked up the hill. They've got public toilets outside as well, which is good, and they're very clean. But you go in here and it's completely different to Fragonard in the way that it's not salesy. I find Fragonard to be really salesy. I don't like it. I get this icky feeling. And you can go and get these little tours and they're free. And then you can go to the shop afterwards where they'll talk to you about their fragrances, etc. And if you go to the tourist office first, you will get a little brochure and it will give you 10% off, but you need to take it with you. So on the brochure about Molinard and Fragonard, I don't know if Fragonard actually have the 10% off, but definitely Molinard do and Gallinard do. And so Gallinard is not walking distance, or it is, but if you're a good walker and you don't mind walking back uphill. So at the entrance, there's a very lovely lady on the reception. And I said, "Oh, when is the tour?" She said, "It's closed." I thought, God, just my luck, isn't it? I go in there and she said, "It's closed." And I thought, it's just my luck. She said, "But there's a shop downstairs." She said, "But if you like, I can open it for you." The tour room where they show you like the old copper distillers and all the, materials that they used for enfleurage, etc., extracting the oils and amazing, you see like raw materials and the history of fragrance and the history of Gallinard. It's a fascinating place. And normally you would be with a lot of people that get in the way of your photograph taking. She put the lights on. She turned back. I felt, oh my God, I'm like a VIP again. How lucky am I on this trip? I mean, unlucky in some circumstances, but lucky in others. So she let me in, like, on my own, wandering around, opening things, touching things, opening little drawers, opening bookcases, looking at these really antique perfume books. So that was in Gallinard. What an amazing lady. Let me do that. So I got some fantastic pictures without having anybody in the way and photobombing me. So that was basically my last day in Grasse. And then I decided to go into the centre because I wanted to go and get a couple more things on my very last day so I could jam them into the car, into the tiny little car that I got. And then that was it. And then the next day I left in my Fiat 500 Sport that I was so excited to drive because it had 6 gears and I had a 7.5-hour journey home. Also, I thought, the next day I checked out, everything jammed into the car, everything fitted just about. I get in the car, 2 hours into my journey. I looked at the time. It was 11 o'clock when I was leaving, and the estimated time of arrival to my house was 6 hours. It was 6:30, which meant it was a 7.5-hour journey. I was still on the road at 10 o'clock that night, and I was still 2 hours away from home and had to stop at my friend's, Eric's. Why? Because the car that I got from Europe Car that replaced the car that broke down started to fall apart on the motorway. 2 hours into my journey, in my peripheral vision through the passenger side window, I could see this black thing flapping in the wind. I'm doing about 120 kilometres an hour, which is within the speed limit. I'm on the motorway and you can do up to 130. So I wasn't dangerous driving. But this... And I was like, what's that? Is that like a ribbon, like stuck to my wheel or something flapping? No, it was the plastic of the wheel arch that was hanging on by one screw, flapping. So luckily, I slowed down, ended up pulling into a lorry pit stop, but also car pit stop where they also have like a resting place, and lots of lorries were there. And I didn't have this thing. It was literally falling off. And I tried to like pop it back into place, but I couldn't. There was a guy having a piss opposite me because, they do that in France. They pee a lot. They just get their willies out and go and like wee in public and they don't care who sees them. You see it all the time. I was so shocked because I've lived in the Middle East for 20 years where they're a lot more conservative and you would get arrested for that kind of behaviour and deported and imprisoned before you get deported. So I'm just like, the first time I ever saw it, I was really shocked. Anyway, there was a guy having a wee next to his car and I'm like, excuse me, have you got any tape, like masking tape or duct tape that I can tape this thing up so I can drive home because I've still got another 500 kilometres to go. And he's like, no, I don't, sorry, but it looks like it's broken. I asked another guy, he's like, no, sorry, I don't have any tape. So I saw this lorry and I saw a guy who was in the passenger seat. and I banged on the window. And I thought, well, if anybody's got tape that can stick this thing back onto my car so I can finally get home, a trucker will have it. But he wouldn't even wind his window down. He didn't even want to hear what I had to say. And I was so upset. And he was just like shaking his head vigorously and waving his hands going, no, no, no. Like, go away. Like, fuck off, will you? That kind of thing. And I'm like really upset. And I'm like crying. Like, why will this man not help me? All I want is a bit of tape. When I told my friend Eric, he said, it's probably because he thought you were a prostitute. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding? An aging prostitute. I couldn't think of anything worse. Seriously, nobody would pay for this. So anyway, apparently that's a thing. You get prostitutes that go to these trucker stops and offer their services. Nothing wrong with being a prostitute, but I don't think... Actually, it's not the first time I've been mistaken for a prostitute. It happened quite a lot in Dubai where men would stop their cars in dodgy areas of Dubai and ask me how much. So it's not the first time, but I just wasn't expecting it at a truck stop when my car was falling apart. Anyway, I called Europe Car. I was really upset, and I ended up calling a Europe Car that was only a 20-minute drive away. And I thought, well, if I drive really slow, I'll be able to get there. I'll be able to swap the car because Europe said I can swap the car. So she said, okay, drive to that one. It's only 20 minutes away. They'll give you a replacement car. When I got there, she just went, no, we don't have a car. We don't have any cars. You need to go to Avignon. I said, how far is Avignon? She said, it's only 10 minutes away. When I looked at my maps, it was 40 minutes away in the opposite direction to where I wanted to go and where I was going home. And I said, why are you not speaking English? I said, they told me at Europe Car that every single person speaks English at Europe Car in every branch because it's a prerequisite for the job. And she was like, no. And she got a Google Translate, and I thought, how rude. And she looked really scruffy. She looked like she needed a bath as well. And I was really annoyed at her. So first of all, she didn't have a car. Second of all, it's going to take me 40 minutes in the opposite direction to get there. So of course I'm crying again, because I cry. It's one of those things of being a youngest child that, I don't know if you're a youngest child, but I tend to cry if I don't get my own way. I always did it as a kid, and I still do it now when I'm 54. So I ended up going to a garage. I thought, if a garage has got tape, surely a garage will have tape, and I can just tape it up and I can be on my merry way. And luckily, cut a long story short of that, I ended up finding a garage. The third one that I went to, they had some tape and they really helped me. And it was masking tape and it was really pretty strong. He said, that'll do. I said, I've got 500 kilometres. He said, okay, it'll do. It'll be fine. Another 2 hours into my journey. No, it was an hour, actually. Another hour into my journey. Bang on the driver's window. I'm like, what's that? It was the other one. The other one had popped off. I'm like, what kind of a sporty car is this? When you're on the motorway and like the spoilers, like the wheel arch, plastic trim things are just like coming off. I'm like, I can't believe this is happening to me. So I had to pull over. Luckily, one of those places off the highway where you've got the orange telephone box. And I pulled over and these trucks were like swerving to avoid me. And luckily, the guy that had taped up the right-hand side wheel arch had put extra masking tape. So I was able to peel off 3 pieces of surplus and then stick it to the one on the left at the front and hopefully try and make it home. So then I was like, okay, I feel okay now, but it's going to take me a really long time. Now it's going to be like 9:30, 10 o'clock by the time I get home. But luckily now the weather, the days are getting lighter and the sun doesn't set really until almost 10 o'clock. So I thought I'll make it home. Or so I thought. Tire pressure problem now. Well, I mean, what else could it be? So I had to find, it was another 20 kilometers to a service station. I had to ask in the end 3 guys to help me because I couldn't do the right tire pressure and I didn't know what it was. And then we had to Google it because normally it's written on the inside of the car, on the inside of the door, and it wasn't. So, I had a tire pressure problem. So again, I'm crying. And I decided to console myself and go into the shop and buy a packet of crisps. And then I decided that it was going to be almost midnight when I got home, and my friend who lives in Toulouse lived about 2 hours away. It was now about 7:30 at night, and I said, it's going to take me about 2 hours to get to you. And he said, that's okay, you can come and stay over, and then I'll leave in the morning. So that's what I did. I eventually made it there. The tire pressure was fine. The flappy things stayed on. And I ended up going to my friends and having rosé and watching the tennis, and had quite a lovely time, and very, very adventurous. And that was almost the end of my holiday. Suffice to say, I went into the city to Europcar the next day and exchanged the car again. So on my 1 week trip, a trip that should have taken me 7.5 hours to get home took me 23 hours because I got home around 10 o'clock in the morning the next day. And exchanged the car. They gave me a brand new car, actually, at Europcar. God bless them. I think they felt sorry for me. And I'm like, no, don't give me a brand new car. I don't want a brand new car. It's got like no scratches on it. I'm terrified to drive it now. I need to give it back on Thursday. And I had to hire a French speaker to find out what was happening with my car. So now the tow company took it to a garage in Grasse. My car is still in Grasse. The first garage that it went to said there's a problem with the fan's motor, but I can't fix it. It needs to go to a Citroen garage. I called Citroen and they went, not. I went, what do you mean, not? They went, no, we can't fix it. We've got too much work. We won't be able to even look at it for another month. So I'm like, what? Oh my God, this is ridiculous. So I ended up calling a lady that found out that Peugeot could take it today. So today is Tuesday. I came back last week on Monday. Actually, Tuesday I ended up coming home. And yeah, that was it. That's the end of my saga. Well, it's not finished yet because I need to go back to Grasse and pick up the car when it's finally fixed. And I'm waiting for Peugeot to give me a quote about the car. So those are my adventures. I'm going to conclude this story now with my top tips of Grasse and things that you should visit when you're there. So here are my top tips of Grasse, things that you have to do, whether you're there for a few hours or a few days. If you only go to one place in Grasse, go to the Museum of Perfumery. It's the MIP, they call it for short, and the Musée International Parfumerie or something like that. But it's an amazing, incredible place. They've got a couple of floors. You'll be able to see some of the plants in their natural environment, like patchouli, rose, jasmine, thyme, etc. They've got a lot about their history. You can take a lot of pictures. No flash, can't take videos. But the pièce de résistance is when you've finished with, the history and the gardens, etc. You get to walk through a garden where you can actually picnic. They've got tables and chairs. And then you go into another room, where they have all the perfume bottles from antiquity until the present day. And it's an incredible place. You can't take videos. You can take pictures with no flash. And I took about 2,000 pictures of perfume bottles. And it was just an incredible. If you only do one thing, go to the International Perfumery Museum and they've got across the road, they have a little patisserie where they serve coffee, soft drinks, alcohol. You can buy beer and wine if you like. They have baguettes and croissants or warm sandwiches up for you. They do lovely sandwiches. And you can get this to take away, and you can actually take it into the garden and like picnic in the garden, because they don't serve food at the museum, but you can take your food into the garden and eat it there. And it's just a lovely way to spend an afternoon, and you've got like a nice little picnic. You can spend a whole day at that museum, and I did spend most of the day there. One of the first things you must do when you go to Grasse is go to the tourist office. It's the first stop. You have to go in there. They're incredibly helpful. And I actually went in, when I went in last year, I said to her, if you could only do one thing and you were in Grasse for only one day, what would you do? And she told me that she would go to the International Perfumery Museum's gardens that is about 40 minutes outside of Grasse. I mentioned it earlier. And it's an incredible place. You can actually buy a picnic while you're there. Now, I've not been. I didn't go last year because the bus was about 30 minutes late. And I thought, knowing my luck, I'm going to end up missing my flight if the bus is late on the way back. So I ended up not going, but you can get a bus that goes directly there. So I would recommend that. Or if you have a car, then you can drive it in about 40 minutes. On a bus, it might take about an hour. But go to the gardens. You can spend the whole day there. They've got an incredible array of, plants and flowers, trees, and it's a gorgeous place. And yeah, like I said, you can actually buy a picnic whilst you're there. So definitely do that. But go into the tourist office and see what tickles your fancy, because there's so much to do and it depends on your taste and how much time you have. But they are really incredibly helpful. And like, you can get the brochures as well for Fragonard, Gallinard and Molinard. And if you get these brochures, it'll actually say on it 10% off, and you have to take that with you if you want to get 10% off in the shop. Get your walking shoes on. When you go to Grasse, take a bottle of water with you wherever you go, and a fan and a sun hat and some sunscreen. It can get incredibly hot in the summer and very crowded. So it's best to go like off-peak times. Apart from the Rose de Mai festival, you must go for that. And then they have the Jasmine festival, which I think is in August or September. I'm hoping to go to that this year. But wear comfortable shoes. There's a lot of hills and there's a lot of steps and there's a lot of walking to do in Grasse. If you want to see it really quickly, get the yellow train. The yellow train, it's €3. It's every hour from 11 o'clock until 5 o'clock on the hour. Some of the days it starts at 12 and they don't run on a Sunday. And you just get on the train. It's not far. It's literally a few steps from the tourist office, which is next to the Palais de Congrès, and you can actually get the train there. It stops near the roundabout where there's a fountain. And you just hop on the train. You know, you don't need to buy your ticket before. You just pay the train driver. And it takes you around. And I think it's like a 45-minute thing. It takes you around the square of Grasse and around the streets. And it's just a really interesting way to see Grasse in a short amount of time without having to walk a lot. If you've got your high heels on, please take your high heels off. Take trainers. I had boots on the whole time I was walking. Really comfortable boots. During high season, everything in Grasse is open every day. It's even on a Sunday, and they're often open from 10 o'clock to around 6 or 7 o'clock. You must go walking down the streets. There's lots of little touristy boutiques. You can buy some beautiful nugget or nougat. I got some really soft nougat. There's lots of restaurants where you can sit outside, have a glass of rosé and a Perrier spritz, have something to eat. There's little bakeries. There's one that I found down the little streets at the bottom, not in the actual main square. In the main square, you've got lots of touristy shops. But you've got mostly in the main square, you've got restaurants, which are really quite nice. But you've got restaurants in the little side streets as well. So go exploring, but don't go too downtown because it gets a little bit shady and a bit dodgy. So if you see, any of that, then just start walking back up the hill again. And it's a really gorgeous place. Lots of walking to do. The one bakery that I found had a flatbread. Actually, my friend Vincent introduced me to it, and it's made with essence of orange blossom. So basically, like neroli, orange blossom. It's got the essence of it in there. And I wish she would have given me the recipe because it's absolutely incredible. And she's like, no, you can't freeze it, because I wanted to buy like 20 of them and take them home and freeze them. And she's like, it completely ruins the texture if you freeze it. But you know what? I bought 3, I ate 2, and I put one in the freezer anyway, because I just want to test that theory. Because I don't just believe often the word of people. I need to find out for myself. I'm curious like that. And this bread is some of the nicest bread I've ever tasted. And you can get that beautiful taste of orange blossom. And apparently, I have tried it and it does work. It's really good with goat's cheese and this little confit that she had. She had a rose confit, which is like a rose jelly. And she had an orange a mimosa one, actually. She had mimosa jelly, which I've not tried yet. But I had the rose confit with goat's cheese and this orange blossom bread. And it's beautiful. I bought some nugget while I was there. Shop around for magnets. You can buy a lot of magnets between €3 to €5, fridge magnets, and then there's a little place you can buy. There's a lot of postcards that you can get, are really cool, and they're like €1. So definitely shop around. Lots of really cool little knickknacks that you can buy in souvenirs for yourself or your friends or family. Fragonard is another must-do, and it is right next to the Perfumery Museum. You can't miss it. It's a great big old yellow building. They have 2. There's one that is a shop. When you go into the shop, if you go to, so not where they have the biggest building, they have a smaller building that's closer to the perfumery. So imagine you've got the Perfumery Museum on your left, you've got a little Fragonard shop, and then you've got the big Fragonard house there, which is where they have the tours and everything. But if you go into the first Fragonard building, it's a shop But it's not just a shop. If you go to the back and turn left, you'll see a lady sitting at a desk and you'll be like, oh no, I'm intruding. She's sitting at her office. This must be where the accountants live. It's not. It's actually the entrance to the Museum of Vêtements, which is clothing, basically. So it's historic clothing that they have upstairs. It's very short. It's very cute. It's very sweet. It's very nice to see. And it's free. You just go around. And they've got one of those carriages, like I want to be carried on. One of those carriages where they have big hunky men carrying you and you sit there like a queen and you're thrown. It's like a closed carriage, because I don't know why they didn't use horses. But men would carry you. And they have one of those on display. It's really interesting. And you can buy some of the Fragonard books as well. They have 2 books in English and then the rest I think you can only get in French. But I bought some of the Fragonard books. It tells you about the history of Fragonard. And they are really interesting, and some of the artifacts that they have there at the house. You can go to a tour, and I just rock up, because they have them all the time. And the tours last between, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 minutes, something like that. You get to see little back end. They don't let you take videos of this, where they've got a production line where they're making the fragrances. They're bottling up their fragrances in these gold bottles, and then when you go around the corner, they've got the guy that's making the egg soap. They're very famous. They have half a dozen eggs, so you get the typical egg box, but it's got different smells of soaps in there, jasmine, tuberose, rose, and mimosa. And that's you have to buy the egg soaps. I mean, if you buy one thing at Fragonard, buy a book and buy the egg soaps. I'm not a fan of their fragrances, to be quite honest with you. The tours are free because at the end of the tour, you get to go into the boutique, which I find icky and salesy. And I heard them the other day when I was there, and they have the microphone on now going, can anybody smell the pepper in this perfume? And they have all of these people, and it's incredibly salesy. And I don't like that. I really hate that. So I just looked at that and I'm like, can I go now? Because the tour had finished. She's like, yes, you can go. And I wanted a bag, actually. Last year was the Narcisse. They do special edition bags. This year it's the Lilac. And they're special edition. They only release these bags every year. But you had to spend €150 just to get this bag, which to me is a complete rip-off. I don't like it. I don't want to spend €150 on your products that I don't like. Thank you very much. Just to get a bag that actually costs €12. But you can get other styles of bags. And they're Fragonard bags. They're really famous and they're gorgeous. They're really good quality. And I use them for my flea markets. And I've got 3 different ones now. I collect them and I get different styles every time I go. So Fragonard is definitely a must visit. You don't need to book an appointment for the tour that is free. And they do them in different languages, and they definitely do them in English. And if you just pop in and just say, when is your next tour in English, they'll tell you. I was lucky when I went last year. And she said it's actually just started now. If you run downstairs, you can catch them, which is what I did. And I took videos in the place where you're not supposed to take video, but never mind, I never was one for following the rules. They also have perfume making experiences, and I think it's around 90 minutes. You have to pre-book it. And you can book it online, or perhaps if you go into Fragonard, perhaps they'll let you book it there. But often when I went into Gallinard, I asked them about the perfume making experience, and they said it's all centralized online. So you have to book it online. So Fragonard might be the same. So if you want to book a perfume making experience, I would recommend that you do it probably before you go, if you know when you're going to turn up, and so that they're not sold out, so that you're not disappointed, especially during high season, because spaces are limited. But Gallinard charged €99 for their perfume making experience, and Fragonard charge €69. And I don't know how much Molinard charge, but they also have, I think, perfume making experiences. So they're basically, you learn the very basic of fragrance and you get to make a perfume to take home. And I think in Fragonard, you get to make, I think it's an eau de cologne. So it's mostly like citruses and then florals like neroli, orange blossom, rose, etc. That you can put into this fragrance. It's normally 100 ml. You can make that and you can take it home. And I think it comes with a personalised label. I've never done it. I can do it in my own studio. I'd rather spend my money on buying books and perfume bottles, to be honest with you. But next time I go, I might just do it just so I can video it and show people the experience. But I think I will choose the Gallinard one because, like I said in my podcast It's Gallinard is not as salesy as Fragonard, and I like that whole experience. So I can imagine that perhaps the perfume making experience might be the same, and it looks more interesting. And I don't think that it's specific an eau de cologne. I think you can make a perfume. So yeah, that's it. Definitely, that's Fragonard. And Gallinard is a place that you must visit, but it's just outside of Grasse. It's like on the edge of Grasse, so I would recommend. They've got parking, so if you've got a car, you can drive there. They've got McDonald's across the roundabout as well, and then another Fragonard magasin, a boutique rather, or magasin is shop in French. You can go to another Fragonard thing. They don't do the tour there, or do they? I think they might do actually, yes, but I didn't want to go on the tour there. So you can do 2 different tours of Fragonard. Then you've got the Gallinard, which is just one. And then you can go to Molinard as well. Molinard, you can actually walk. It's probably a 10-minute walk, maybe, from the tourist office downwards. So rather than up to the square, you're going down the way. And Molinard, and I went there in 2016. I actually didn't go there last year or this year, but Molinard is definitely a place. And again, they do tours there as well, guided tours. And yeah, it's just really interesting. And you can join them sometimes if you're just in time, or you can pre-book it. And yeah, I like that. I bought a couple of perfumes actually in 2016 from Molinard as well, because I didn't mind their fragrances. And this time in Gallinard, I don't normally buy perfumes. If you know me, I know I don't often like commercial fragrances because they all smell the same and they give me allergies. But I did find a fragrance for my husband at Gallinard, which was a beautiful woody fragrance, which is what he loves, because his favourite fragrance is Noir Extreme, is it, by Tom Ford, and he also likes Terre de Hermes. So I got a couple of gifts for my husband. So yeah, Gallinard fragrances I like above all the others. Another park, if you were a fan of picnics, is the Princess Pauline Park, where you can either walk, it's uphill, but the good news is it's downhill on the way back. If you're a good hiker, you can walk there and take a picnic with you, or you can get a taxi, perhaps a taxi from my Airbnb. It cost me around €22. But my Airbnb was 10 minutes walking in the opposite direction to the centre of Grasse. So I would say a taxi might cost you maybe €12-15 or something like that if you get it from the centre. They've got Ubers as well that can take you there, and just breathtaking views of the whole of Grasse. Sit on a bench, have some rosé and some homemade sandwiches with your couscous, like cucumber and cream cheese, and make a couple of hours of it. It's not a place where you can spend like a whole day, and it's really nice to actually just pop there for lunch. It's a beautiful way to spend and get out of the touristy areas of Grasse, and that's what I would do if I went back again and I'd had a full morning of shopping and I was planning on doing museums or perfume houses in the afternoon. I would definitely go back to Princess Pauline Park and have a picnic there just for a little breather. There's just so many amazing photo opportunities in Grasse as well. So I do recommend getting on your comfy shoes and just making a whole day of just walking around and exploring and getting lost. That's where I find the most treasures of any experience that I ever have on any vacation that I've ever been on, or a working trip. I've always ended up getting lost, literally. And it's just a wonderful wonderful way to explore and see the sights that you might often not see getting lost around the streets. But one tip I will give you as well is, if you go into the tourist office and ask them, what are these gold little plaque type things, like brass plaques that they have. If you look at the floor as you're walking around all the little streets and the squares, you'll see them, and it's got like the G for Grasse symbol in it. And you might think that it's just a pretty little thing and it doesn't really mean anything, but what it actually is if you get the map of Grasse and follow these little things around Grasse, it's showing you all of the really interesting things. So it's like a walking tour, but you're taking by yourself and you're following these gold things on the road, like a yellow brick road, but without the Wicked Witch of the West on your tail. Anyway, that's it. That's my top tips for Grasse. Get your comfy shoes on and go and look at the Grasse like tourist website before you go and have a look on the tourism website. And often the museum, if you look at the Grasse Institute, not Grasse Institute of Perfumery, so I've got that on my mind. If you look at the MIP, the International Museum of Perfumery, their website often tells you about events that are going on. Now, last year when I went to Grasse, I actually went to Jean-Claude Eleanor, who was the perfumer to Hermes many years ago, was supposed to be doing a talk at the museum, but then he ended up cancelling. But I ended up going to Grasse anyway because I had other things that I wanted to go for. But if you have a look at the tourist website and have a look at the museum website, you can often see things that are happening around the region, and even vide greniers. If you go on to like Brockebrac or vide grenier near me, you can have a look at flea markets that might be happening at the weekend. I went to one and I found some real little beautiful treasures there. So that's it. That concludes my top tips for Grasse. And if you were listening to the whole episode of Tuesday's Tips and Tales, I hope that you have been thrilled by my adventures and misadventures. And next week it's going to be much shorter because it's not always going to be about really long tales about my trips, because I'm not going on any now until September. And I'm not revealing where I'm going yet, but it's in Europe and it's not in France. And I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to drive there if my car ever gets fixed. Until next time, a bientôt. Stay fabulous.